Wow, I just jumped off an amazing customer interview with Rod Bland. He is a customer out of the Quantum Leap Ecom agency program. He joined Quantum Leap back in November, I believe, of 2020. So he's not even been in the program for a full year yet. And he's gone from 1,500, which is what he joined the program at, and he's now hitting 20K per month with his agency. Absolutely insane numbers. And I just had an amazing conversation with him. You know, I think if you're gonna watch a customer interview, it has to be this one because, you know, I literally said to him at the end of it, I was like, dude, I've just been sat here listening to you talk and I'm getting motivated, right? It was an amazing conversation. And I think no matter where you're at, right? You're at 10,000 a month, you want to get to 20, right? You want to double your agency. You're at 5,000 a month, you want to 4X. And more specifically, if you're at $0 per month and you're struggling to get your first few clients, please do yourself a favor and watch this conversation, listen to this conversation intently, take notes, because there was a lot of actionable stuff as well as kind of not so much mindset stuff, but just stuff, you know, things to be thinking about as a beginning agency owner or an agency owner wanting to scale. But also, as I say, there's a lot of actionable insights, so make sure you get a pen and paper and take some notes. And with that being said, as always, guys, if you want to join the Quantum Leap Ecom agency program, hit the link in the description. I believe the first link is going to take you to a book call page, which is where you can jump on a call with our student success manager, Daniel, who'll walk you through the program, who'll also see where you're at and see if the program even makes sense for you, and, you know, to see if it's actually going to help you get to where you want to go. And he'll show you how it will help you get to where you want to go. And if you're an agency owner where you've got a solid foundation in place already, you know, you're at 5, 10, 15, 20K a month, 50K a month, whatever it is, you got a solid foundation in place and you want to scale up to, you know, 50, 80, 100,000 a month with your agency, then click there. I believe it will be the second link, one of the links in the description. It'll say Centurion Agency next to it. And basically that is my high level program, which will take you from that, you know, place of having a strong foundation, 5,000 a month, a few clients, 10,000 a month, 50,000 a month, whatever it is. And we take you to that 100,000 per month mark. And we also guarantee results inside of Centurion because it is a high level investment. However, as I say, we guarantee results just because that's how confident I am in the program. So if you're interested in Centurion Agency, click the Centurion Agency link in the description. It'll take you to a demo video where I'll walk you through the program and show you how we get you to that 100,000 per month mark. And also on that page, you'll be able to book in a call where we'll be able to show you again how the Centurion Agency program will actually help you scale your agency. Guaranteed. But with that being said, I deeply hope you enjoy this conversation. I really, truly believe you will. And as always, if you enjoy this video, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, I will see you on the other side.
So I think like best place to start, or where it makes most sense, is kind of, because I know you have a very, very different kind of journey, right? Because I know before you started the agency, you was an actual ecom founder, owner yourself, right? And then you switched to the agency space, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting. So,
yes.
Yeah. What happened there?
Well, so I think I was about 32. So I'm 50 now, right? So it was about 32 was when I started.
You're 50.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, just hit the big 50 actually.
Oh my gosh, dude, you look insane. I would never have said you were 50.
Good bit of lighting. Thanks. Anyway. Yeah, I'm probably about a lot. I know a lot of your students will be about. It's interesting about. Well, not a third. Maybe some a third. Probably. Yeah, some will be a third way. It's interesting to see. You know, it's also exciting that. You know, I wish I had access to the kind of training that is available now. Yeah. You know, when I was young, but anyway, look, everybody's journey is different. So anyway, to get back to I started at 32, I started an e-commerce business, and it was really kind of, I always wanted to be in business for myself from my sort of early 20s. Mm-hmm. And it was just by coincidence that one of my friends, he had started a website that was actually called Ramboy, and he sold computer memory. And he was a programmer. So this is back before Shopify. There was no e-commerce systems, no nothing. Yeah. And he put together a set of templates and a checkout system so that people could actually buy and order things online. So, and he was wanting to take his sort of programming career, you know, in a different direction. And this hobby, you know, he realized that he was sick of dealing with issues with fraud and whatnot. So I said, oh, look, I'll take over from him. So we struck a deal. We kind of, I think I bought him a piece of hardware to buy the template system from him. Oh, wow. And then I registered a website called Ram City. So it was ramcity.com.au, which is still running today because I sold it to my competitor. It's running on a different platform, but the business is still there. And then, you know, I I built and ran that for 16 years. So I think at the peak we're about sort of $4.6 million in turnover. So, it was a reasonable size, and we had a couple of years we were on the BRW Fast 100, had some really strong years of growth and had some really crap years as well.
Yeah.
I always say to people, I've learned how to fail more than most. I've made more mistakes than what most people will have made. So I like to tell people that, and I think that gives me something that I can bring, to having an agency, working with other business owners, having that experience. Yeah. And then I think, honestly, I probably pivoted one too many times. There was a much better time to sell the business than when I did. I managed to sort of get out by the skin of my teeth, basically, and thought, okay, well, what else can I do now? I have to do something. Did some contract work for a little while, and then thought, okay, well, let's do the agency thing. So I think I was really hunting around for specifically, doing the social media advertising for e-commerce businesses. And it took me a while to actually find a program until I found yours, actually, because there was a couple of others, I'd done a lot of stuff that Sam Ovens has put out. And then when I found yours, that really sort of gave me a starting point to, get into doing Facebook ads specifically for e-commerce businesses. And it's just kind of grown from there. The learning process has really only just begun. I've not quite been running for a year yet. And, I feel a lot more confident doing it, but I still know that there's a lot more to learn.
Of course. Yet. I mean, there's always more to learn, right? So because you say that, like, you've not even been running a year yet, but you've had some crazy growth, right? Like, so where are you at right now with the agency?
Yeah, well, I was lucky. I had some early success. I did know a couple of people in the industry, and a couple of those came on as clients. So yeah, the agency is sort of hovering. It's been consistently around a sort of 17 to 20K a month. I've had some clients go, I've had new clients come on. So that sort of point is frustratingly elusive going over that at this point. And, that will come as well. There's one, especially if you're, when you start, you've got a lot of time to put into outreach and other things. And then as you begin, you take on clients. I do have a media buyer who handles one of my clients, but I've been wanting to do a lot of it myself to learn. And, when you've got a few clients, then the time it's taken for service fulfillment does, take up a lot of space. So I've kind of had to weigh that up with, having an additional, handing more to my media buyer and taking less on myself. But then I've also got to make a living, I've got 4 kids to feed. So, that requires a lot of income. So, for me, that where I am now is I can really live on that. It's, not living like a king or anything, but that's a good place to be. And I'm happy with that, given that I started only a year ago. But certainly, want to grow from here, to at least double that. That'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. I know you mentioned as well, like one of the biggest struggles when you started out was getting clients with no results. And I think that's a struggle for most people starting out. And it's also, I think it acts as a really big limiting belief, right? They think I'm not going to be able to sign clients starting out with no results. How did you overcome that? Because obviously you overcame it, and then, I suppose the results helped the external growth after the few clients, the first few clients. But how did you overcome that initial barrier? Yeah.
Well, you're right. It is a limiting belief. And I think the limiting belief is that some people think that other people will think that you have to have results in order to want to work with you. And, maybe that's true, but you don't actually know, right? And it's not always true. I mean, everybody has to start at zero. You can't just jump into any business without having started somewhere. And you can look at any successful business person, whether it's Steve Jobs or whether it's the Richard Branson or anybody, they all started somewhere. They knew nothing about what they were doing. They just were hustling. And really that's it. I think if you're prepared to hustle, then at some point, somebody's not going to care whether you've done something before, or whether you've not, whether you've succeeded with other clients or whether you haven't. It's just going to be a timing thing. You're just going to reach out to that person. They're going to get a message from you right at the point that they are thinking, I really need somebody to handle this for me. And there'll be some sort of connection. And I've had that happen a few times where it's like, oh, I can't believe I was just thinking about doing this. Just 2 days ago, I was just talking to my mate about how I need somebody to handle my Facebook ads, and your email arrived 2 days later. I've had that fair income. So it wasn't a case of, tell me about your previous results or anything. It was just talking about what is it that you want to do with your business. So I think where people can get hung up is really in the delivery and the service fulfillment side of things. But the conversation really needs to be about, well, where do you want to get to with your business and why do you want to do that? If you can really sort of get into a conversation about what somebody wants to do with the business and, whether they're experiencing some sort of pain getting there, what will happen when they do get there? Why do they need that? To really, and it sort of helps people develop their own feelings about things. Because sometimes people will say, we want to improve our email marketing, or we know that we need to run Facebook ads because it's a missed opportunity. Well, why is it a missed opportunity? Well, because I think there's some more potential in the business. We could probably add about another 20%. Well, why do you want another 20% to your business for? And some people are afraid to have that conversation. But the thing is that it's not a conversation that people often have. And I think if you ask it in a way where you're really genuinely interested, people will open up and start talking about those things. And the next thing you know, you've got them talking about, they're getting excited about the possibilities and where things can go. And then a relationship can begin from there. And then from that point onwards, it's really just doing your damnedest to learn as much as you possibly can and deliver the results that your client wants. And, over time, you'll be able to do that. And you might stumble and fall when you do. And I've done that too. I've stuffed things up. I've not delivered things that I thought I could. I've used techniques that didn't work with one client that did work with another. But this is all part of the learning process. But you do have to start somewhere and just give it a go.
100%. I completely agree. I think a big selling point when you're starting out is you, the personality more. So that's majority of the time what people buy into. And if you can, that's what they buy into, but also what they're ultimately buying again is like you say, it's not the technical side of Facebook ads. That's not what they're buying. They're buying that dream outcome. And so taking that approach that you mentioned, asking, why do you want it? Why want to add an extra 20%? Or why do you want to use Facebook ads to add an extra 20%? Well, why do you want to do that? You really dig to that true reasoning and sell that. I mean, ultimately that's what they're buying. It makes the sale much easier. And then from there, that's where the results come into play, right? As you say, focusing on results, genuinely ensuring that you're going to deliver for them and doing everything that you can to deliver for them. That's when the results come into play. And then it's just like a flywheel from there on in.
Yeah. 100%.
So what do you feel as though, once you've got the first, the foundation in place and whatnot, you got your first few clients and getting pretty good results, you've kind of built your proof of concept or your initial proof of concept. Where do you feel as though the biggest focus is and what the most important aspect of the agency is? Because I know a lot of people, for myself, a really big, aspect for me is team. I think that's one of the most important parts of running an agency and has the biggest impact and whatnot. What do you feel as though is the biggest or has had the biggest impact for you in your agency?
Yeah, well, I agree that team is important. And honestly, I'm not at that stage yet. There's just myself and the media buyer, and I can handle a lot of things myself. And that's my choice to do that. And then team does become important as if you want to scale. What's important for me is really consistent outreach. And that's the main thing. There's a direct correlation between how much outreach I do and how many appointments I'm booking and how many new clients I'm taking on. Because, as much as we would like to think if we have a new client come in that they'd stay with us for years, that doesn't always happen. And you do have clients come and clients go. So you've got to have a steady stream of new leads come in, just like you've got to have a steady stream of new leads for your clients when you're doing running ads for them. So that's the key for me, is to have a system of outreach that is doesn't take up too much time, because if it takes up 2 or 3 hours of your day, well, that's a lot, right? That's got to really deliver some major returns. So working out and the way I do outreach at the moment, I would much prefer to do really personalized outreach. But what I found has worked best for me is to have a sort of a semi-personalized outreach where I select a group of clients that are all in the same sort of niche, and then tailor the email sequence for that particular niche, but not for that particular that person. And that way I can just review their sites and say, okay, we want to put them on the list. We do. And then we can, within an hour, we can hammer out 25 fairly well personalized emails that goes in a sequence, and the messaging that they're getting is relevant to their particular industry, their particular vertical. So I found that's what's worked best for me. And then it's finding a more automated means of getting qualified leads. That was the hurdle. And I've tried a couple of different ways. Like I've used somebody on Upwork to say, okay, give them firstly, just find me the leads. And that was a real problem because sometimes they would give you websites that weren't qualified, etc. So then I took it the next day. Okay, here's a bunch of websites. Now find me the contacts, and that was okay. But sometimes the contacts weren't correct or they weren't validated. So the next level was to find pre-qualified contact. I use a SaaS product that somebody has produced by what's his name? The email wizard. Email Wizard. I think it was really good program. So he has a SaaS product where you can actually just download the contacts in e-commerce already. So then I can just segment them by their particular industry. And I found that is much better because I can just take, okay, here's 25, one particular industry. Here's a sequence that I've already got or one that I need to like tweak to design for that particular vertical. And then boom, just, send them out and away I go. So yeah, that's been a key because if you don't, like I say, if you don't have consistent outreach, you don't have a good source of leads coming in, your agency's just going to die. At some point, you won't have to worry about lead sourcing quite so much if you're doing if you're doing some sort of omnipresence content where you're developing this sort of ongoing large amount of content that people provides you with some authority in your industry.
Yeah.
But that takes a long time to build. So in the meantime, you've got to have another means of getting leads in. And, you can either do that with email outreach or you can run ads. They've got their own particular issues as well. But that's what I find is working for me at the moment. For
sure. So that's all through email currently?
Yeah. I've run a couple of ad campaigns, but I've got iteration number 3 coming up. I'm getting better at that as I go along. I'll find that some messaging works. Sometimes you can get pretty unqualified leads, even with a survey. So I find I get the leads from email are much more targeted and qualified. And if somebody does respond to me, they're definitely they're a good lead. They're something I want to talk to. Whereas it's not always the case with ads. There's less effort involved once the ads are running. The cost is quite similar, but you do have more leads that you just got to knock off. You don't say, I don't want to talk to that person. You'll still get, even if you have in your survey, only for existing businesses that or wanting to spend this much, you'll still get people wanting to contact you to say, okay, I need some tips about this or that. You get a lot of unqualified stuff, whereas email is really point to point. So, you want to talk to that person, you're going to get that person.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a big thing with ads is it's all pretty much entirely around positioning, how your agency is perceived. And that in and of itself is a whole nother thing, I'm curious with emails though, you say, I completely agree, right? Like having a consistent lead flow, having a filled pipeline is like the number one thing, especially when you're starting out. How did you go about fighting the, almost like the pull that you get when you're starting out, you're sending leads, sending emails and you're not getting anything? It's you keep getting knockbacks. People say no. People tell you to F off. People tell you to unsubscribe, and you just can't feel as though you're or you don't feel as though you're able to pick up any momentum. How do you fight through that and continue to keep going, and also continue to keep going in a way that's going to be better? So like the iterations and whatnot, because it's no point tripling down on something and just staying consistent on something that just isn't going to work. So how do you make sure that iterative process comes into play as well?
Yeah. Well, there's 2 questions in there. So how do you keep going when you're starting to get knockbacks? Well, number one is don't take anything that you get personally. Like I just decided, well, I'm going to do this much outreach, which is for me is like 20 per day. I don't always do that, by the way, but
averages
80% consistency is pretty good. That's for me anyway to do that. So that would be the first thing, is just if you make a decision about what level of outreach you're going to do and what number you're going to hit each day, and just keep pumping out. Like don't worry about anything else at that point other than making sure that you do that. Now, if you want to do really personalized outreach and that means only 5 a day, we'll do that. If you want to do sort of more semi-automated outreach like I do, 20 a day, fine, do that. So the next thing is when you do get feedback, like act on it. Don't just ignore it. So if somebody says, piss off, go away. Well, I had that a few times. And I thought, well, sometimes people want to unsubscribe. So give them the option to unsubscribe if they want it. And then for those who, if somebody wants to unsubscribe from your messaging and they can't, they're going to be pissed off. So don't do that. So now I always have an unsubscribe option in my email, and that you can handle that different ways, but there's plenty of ways. I mean, even if you just have a link in your email that says unsubscribe, that actually then creates an email for them that sends it back to you that says unsubscribe. I mean, that's good enough. That's as long as they have some means of doing it, which is how I handle most of my unsubscribes now. So that would be one. And then, whatever as part of getting feedback, it's important that you do get it. So how do you get feedback? Because sometimes people, you'll either get a message back from them, yes, we want to have a chat, or they'll want to unsubscribe, but you don't often get much in between. So the way around that is to actually ask people. So I only send 4 email messages in a sequence. So there's the initial email, there's a follow-up, there's like a kind of a case study email. And the fourth one is, if I haven't heard back from them, is you're an industry expert. I'm a startup. I'm trying to make it happen. If you were my advisor or coach, what advice would you give me about how I've approached you so far? Have you got any feedback about the way that I've messaged you or anything that might actually help me? So that's the fourth message. And you'd be amazed at how many people actually do respond to that. And I've used the feedback that I've gotten from there to improve my messaging. So one piece of feedback that I got was, it'd be really nice if you had a mobile phone number in your email. I thought, oh, okay. Because, I hadn't included that in my email. I thought, I don't want any random people calling me. So this was about 3 months ago. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take that feedback on. So then I put my phone number in my signature. And, very few, 2 people have called me, but 2 people have called me rather than email me back. They've just called me to say, hey, we want to have a chat. So that was one piece of feedback that was actually valuable. And the thought that I was going to get any random person ringing me is total rubbish, right? It didn't happen. It still hasn't happened. So I think it's important to take on feedback and then try it out, like iterate, take that on, make a change, see how well it works. Now, it's the same with email. Like once you've sent out, 100 or 150, you've got some data. So you can say, okay, what sort of response are you getting? Like, what is your open rate like? Is it worth now trying an iteration and then send another 150 with a different iteration and see if there's a change there? And then sometimes, that will expose some things that will work better for you, and then you can continue on down that path. But I think if you continue to iterate, but like with ads, you've got now enough data to accumulate to make good decisions. So same with email. Make sure you've allowed enough data to accumulate. Make sure you've got like 100, 150 pieces of the same email going out, and then you can make some decisions about, that's working, that didn't work. This change I made, this made this effect on my data, whereas before it was this, was that better or worse? Do I need to go back to that, or do I need to change something different? I think if you keep on iterating like that, you get to the point where things are humming along pretty well, but you have to continue to take that feedback on and do something about it.
Yeah, I love the idea of the feedback and actually having a specific email for it. I like that a lot. And you mentioned ads just there. So obviously your service is Facebook ads for clients, right? Like that's your offer?
Yeah. So, there's actually 3 offers now. So okay. I think what I found is that I agree with totally with niching down on something, but especially when you're starting out, it's good to have a couple of different options, because really, if you're starting from zero, you don't really want to say no to too many people if they're willing to pay you money to do something for them, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then I think at some point you can niche down a little more, because you've got to make a living to start with. And then at some point you can be fussier about who you're going to work with. So for me, the main offering is still the Facebook ads, but I've done a lot of Klaviyo work as well. So I did a lot of one-off projects, helping people set up their Klaviyo, migrating from other systems, setting up a basic set of flows. And that offer has kind of evolved over time, and it's more of an ongoing service agreement like what I have with Facebook ads now, because I found that one-off projects can end up dragging out and you can end up blowing your money on those. Whereas if you've got an ongoing service, sure, fewer people may sign up for it, but it just is a little more professional, and it then puts it makes it a bit more of a partnership, because then it's on the client to make sure they get back to in a reasonable amount of time when you need feedback or you need to sign off on something. So that's the second one. And the third one is just a general, consulting as well, because some people are a little more hands-on. They don't want to pay for a full service agency, but they still need help. So I have just a flat monthly fee for like 4 hours a month where somebody can sign up for that. And then we can, talk about anything related to e-commerce or business at all. It's really up to them. They decide what they want to talk about. So I found that's an additional offering that some people have gone for as well. So there's those 3 areas.
I love that. I mean, I literally uploaded a video a few days ago, at least at the point of recording this one. And I was talking about the ideas of offers and whatnot, like it's so, especially with Facebook ads, right? It's so saturated now. Like every agency is pretty much doing Facebook ads. So the fact that you're doing Klaviyo, and for those of you who don't know, Klaviyo is an email marketing software for Ecom primarily. And, especially like you say, when you're starting out, doing different offers of that nature can definitely do well. Better in certain instances than a Facebook ads offer, because it's so saturated. When you've got this unique mechanism, this unique way of scaling or doing whatever, people can definitely resonate with it a lot more. Have you found that people are a lot more open and more interested in something like a email marketing / Klaviyo offer? Yeah.
Well, there's two things that are good about it. It's a good way to start working with the client where if they've already they might already have an agency they're doing Facebook ads for, they might be doing it internally. They're pretty happy with that, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of people are really shabby with their email marketing. And I had no idea until I started to look into it. And the reason I looked into it because, email marketing really supplements whatever other marketing you're doing. So if you're using SEO, ads, whatever, you've got to have make sure you've got a banner card sequence. It's really good to have a welcome email. It's good to, capture leads before they leave. A lot of people don't do any of that. And then as time has gone on and I've learned, then there's more sophisticated offerings. So you can do a more complete suite of flows where people are doing a pretty good job. They've got all those things I just mentioned, but they don't have, they're not sort of making the most out of it, because the thing about email marketing is that once you set up a really good set of flows, like what we call foundational flows is about 58 to 60 emails, about 10 different flows, right? That should deliver you about 20, 25, 30% of your revenue. Boom, right? Yeah. Just that consistently, and all you're paying for is the cost of your ESP. So the return on your spend is phenomenal once you've got it all set up. Now, sure, you might need to pay for a project over a 3-month period. It might cost you $8 or $9 to do that. But once it's done, its ongoing maintenance is very, very minimal. Unlike ads where, you turn them off, that's it. Boom. That's no more coming in from that, buddy. So that's been really good. And then I think, by working with clients like that, then I've had a couple where they've also wanted us to look at their Facebook and their Instagram stuff. And it also just gives me a unique sort of point of view of, how else can we improve the results that we get from ads? Well, we can do it by improving what we're doing with our email marketing. I've also looked at, conversion rate optimization and other things too, and I've done projects for that. But I find that just started getting a bit spread too thin. So I've kind of narrowed it back down to those 3 different offers. And if somebody does need to improve their conversion rates on their website, well, the chances are that they need to really get that sorted first, because it's very, very hard to get good results from either ads or email marketing or anything if your conversion rate on your website's in the toilet.
Yeah, 100%. And so with you mentioned you had a media buyer on board. At what point did you bring them on board? Was it when you had a few clients? Did you get them on board before you got any clients? How did you go about that process?
Yeah. Look, I think it was when once I hit about 8 clients, I thought, I've got to get a media buyer on board. Wow. Yeah. Because there's a lot of them came on quite quickly. So there's the initial sort of, onboarding process, which is not quite as labor intensive because I had that pretty well streamlined. But then once you're starting to, do service delivery and getting ads and that sort of thing sorted out, then I really needed some help. So that was when I started looking for a media buyer, and the client that I had my media buyer look after, he still looks after that same client. It was one that was also a bit of a problem for me as well. I was really struggling to get good results, and it was pretty early on. So I wanted to make sure that, I had the best resource that I could get working on that. And, that's worked well for me. And, I know now that we've got a pretty good working relationship, and that once I'm at the point where if I have a new client come in and it's one that I really don't want to work on, or I'm just too stretched to do it, then I know that I can just say, okay, here you go, mate, you can look after this one as well.
For sure. So I'm curious, how did you, go about servicing those initial 8 clients? And did you have like prior experience from you running your own brand you was able to translate over to servicing the clients, or how did you go about that process? Because I know a lot of people don't really feel as though that they're too confident in actually servicing clients on their own. So they kind of feel forced to get a media buyer on board before they bring a client on board, you know?
Yeah.
How did you go about that?
Well, unfortunately, there was enough of a gap between my first client and the next one for me to learn enough about service delivery to feel confident about it. Okay. So, you know, initially for my first client, it's just because I hadn't really had any experience with Facebook media buying before. It was what I learned from your course, and then from any other course and any other content I could digest. I was like consuming it as quickly as I possibly could. And then I used that, you know, for that particular client, and the results were pretty good, but you know, some things worked, some things didn't. And then after a while, I think it was like there was the first client, then there was probably a gap of 2 months, and then I had 3 in a row. And then there was another gap of another couple of months. Then I had another 2 or 3 that come along as well. So I think there was enough for me. I was just lucky that there was enough gap between each one to learn enough. And I already had a pretty good onboarding process in place. Like one of the things I learned from a different course was the onboarding side of things, and creating like almost like a flow, or it was really a video just to get access to the Facebook Business Manager and, you know, creative assets, branding guidelines, access to Google, you know, all those questions, access to their backend for Shopify or whatever platform they're using, getting all that stuff in one a templated email with a video, an explainer video to show them exactly everything that was needed. Mm-hmm. And that really helped present a really professional image to start off with, but B, it just made the process of getting someone onboarded so that nothing got missed, you know, much, much smoother. So then I could really just focus on, okay, once they've done the onboarding process, the client knows it's going to take a week and a half or so to get that sorted. And then after that, it was really just about the service delivery. So the onboarding process, including the client, you know, filling out a pretty extensive avatar survey and all those sorts of things, so that we knew that we had every bit of information that we possibly could to start off with good results, and then, you know, go from there. And then as I've learned, you know, set up standard operating procedures for onboarding someone, you know, it's included things like campaign creation, audience interest research, you know, reviewing their account. Have they got everything set up there within their business manager? Is the domain verified? Is their web event set up? You know, all those things that we need to go through and make sure they're all done. Getting all that sort of squared away, that can really come back and bite you in the arse if none of that stuff is done properly. So you've really got to standardize all those procedures. And then, you know, I found that I was able to cope work-wise with the volume of work that was there, and until, actually it wasn't 8, it was probably more like 6 clients, I think. But then I peaked at about 8, and now I'm actually running only with, there's a couple of clients, the lower value ones that I start off with that have fallen away. And now I can, with what I'm doing now, it's okay with 4 or 5 clients, and then the odd Klaviyo project is kind of where I'm at the moment. So I'm a bit fussier about who I work with now.
For sure. Yeah, I think that initially it's all about volume, and then you go through a refinement process in terms of who you bring on and whatnot as you get a good foundation in place. So, I mean, that's she had a lot of great insight there. I think that's going to be super useful. And something I like to always end off on is kind of what's, 1 to 3 things that you would, somebody came to you now and they wanted to get to where you are. What's, as I say, like 1 to 3 things that you would say to that person to focus on, to be thinking about, during their kind of scaling process, if you like.
Yeah. So I think probably the 3 main things is definitely outreach, like having consistent outreach. You've got to have a means of growing the number of appointments that you're booking, because there's a few reasons for that. Well, obviously that's the only way you're going to get clients in. The second reason is so you can practice and get better at taking sales calls, because over time, as you do more, you'll get better. Like that's inevitable. You'll make mistakes, you'll stuff things up, you'll learn from those things, and then you'll get better the next time around. And it'll also give it, every time you try something out, then it's always good to be, you've got loads of videos in your channel about taking sales calls. There's a lot of your course, and plenty of others have got lots of really detailed information about that. So it also gives you an opportunity to learn, because once you do something and then you go and do some training, it makes way more sense because you've done it and you've seen in real life. Experience. Yeah, it's one thing to do a training course, but it's a completely other thing to actually practice it, what's in there in person with a real person, right? 100%. So that would be number one, outreach. Super, super important, consistent outreach. It doesn't matter what the number are. It just has to be consistent because you've got to, that's the way you're going to get clients. That's the way you're going to learn. That's the way you're going to iterate. So the next thing, so be clients. Let me think off the top of my head. So I think that the other one was with related. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that people can look you up, and when you're doing outreach, people are going to check on you, right? They're going to look. They're going to look for. They're going to look at your domain that your email has come from. They're probably going to try and find a website. They may look you up on social media or LinkedIn or etc. And I've said this to people many times before on your group especially. So you've got to make sure that all those things are squared away, that they do present a professional image. So if you're going to be professional in the advertising space, you've got to look that way. You've got to make sure that you have a profile on both Facebook and LinkedIn that matches what you are talking about. Now, it doesn't mean you need to have a super fancy website. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think it's important to at least have your social media profiles squared away so that when people check, they can see that. And then at some point, if you can have it doesn't have to be fancy. Like I said, if you've got a website that actually has, that shows that you actually are a business that is operating, then that is also really helpful as well. And then, that's kind of the minimum. So you want to have that minimum in place because otherwise you're doing a lot of outreach. And for those people, probably half of them that are checking on you in the background, they go, oh, they're just nobody. Why should I don't want to bother? They might have been interested, but because they checked on you, they're like, no, I'll just flag that one.
The lost opportunity for sure.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people I've had before I had any client results at all that they say, oh yeah, I checked up on your website. I checked up on your, to see what you had on LinkedIn, et cetera. I'd posted articles there. I'd written about that. My profile was clear and that I was a professional in that area. So that's really important as well.
That's a super
so the third thing, I'd say there's probably more like two things. Ongoing training and learning is really important, but it's not as important as getting good results for your clients. So those two things go hand in hand. I think once you've got a client, then you've really got to do your absolute damnedest to produce good results for them. Rather than thinking about, okay, well, let's get the next client. Like every single client you've got, you've just got to go, okay, how can I help this person make their business so much better than before I began with them? And I think if you've got that mindset, then that will really help steer you towards the things that you need to learn so that you can actually deliver on that promise as well. So for me, it's like, I've learned a lot in a year, but I still commit to spending half an hour to an hour every day in the morning to doing some more training. And it might be going back over training courses like yours that I've already purchased in the past or other people's training courses, because sometimes you go over something and then later on you actually do something in real life with a person or within your agency and it makes more sense. You come back and do that training again. And it's like, oh, I completely missed that before. Like I don't remember reading that before because maybe you did, but you didn't. It wasn't until you applied it that you thought, oh yeah, that's where I stuffed that up. I've got to do that better. I can change things here. I can do that better. So I guess that ongoing commitment to training and bettering yourself and just delivering really good results for your clients is going to help you in the long run. I think anybody who's really interested in delivering good results for their clients is ultimately has to win. It's just, you just can't not win. If that's your attitude, it's just a matter of time.
It's so true. And not enough people talk about it. A lot of people, and I suppose I kind of do this a lot as well on the channel, partly because it gets the most views and whatnot. But, everybody talks about client acquisition, how to sign more clients, but it's very rare for people to really push the idea of delivering. Like if you can't deliver, it doesn't matter how good your client acquisition is. It doesn't matter how many clients you sign. It really doesn't matter if you can't deliver what you're selling, and keep them coming back. Like one of the biggest sources of client acquisition should be referrals as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
that's really cool when that starts to happen. Like when you start people calling you up or sending you an email because, oh, so-and-so told me about you and we need someone to help. Like that's cool. That takes a while, but that's cool when that starts to happen. Yeah.
It's the easiest person to sign as well. And then it's just like this fraud that happens because you sign one client, they refer you, and then they refer you, then they refer you. Then it's just like, such an easy way to sign more clients, but that's only going to happen, like you say, if you're actually able to deliver a high level of service for each one of your clients. So honestly, I deeply appreciate you coming on board and coming on the channel and sharing your insights. I think a lot of people.
It's my pleasure, buddy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will watch this and be extremely motivated. I mean, me just sat here listening to you speak, I'm getting motivated, So I deeply appreciate you coming on board.
Yeah. Well, this is about actually helping people succeed in what they're doing. So it's the same with clients. It's the same with anyone else. So I try to think about, okay, what can actually help people improve? And it can be overwhelming. Sometimes you can run out of time, and you probably know this better than anyone else. You've got loads of people wanting to, wanting help. How can you fix this for me? Will you, Kai? Like, help me do that.
Yeah.
And you want to do that. So yeah, I'm happy to participate. And if it's been useful for someone else, if it takes them from, 5 to 10K a month, or from 0 to 5, and they're happy, look, that's more than enough reward.
It's amazing. I love it.